Hello, everyone. As we all know, the benefits of digitization in the AAC industry are endless, and we've seen all stakeholders in this closely knit field trying to come together and sort of embellish the entire possibility of exploring this field in a very productive manner. And we've seen how it has proven to be a very significant value for construction firms, generating a swift return on investment and increase in productivity as well. And to sort of bring all of this together, we have an opportunity to interact with Mr. Jakub Wachocki, who is the Director of Digital Co-Ventures at Bentley Systems. He holds an MBA degree from Imperial College London and is also a chartered civil building and environmental engineer in Italy, and is also a registered architect in the United Kingdom. He is an accomplished leader with a record of achievement in helping organizations bridge the gaps between outcomes of human capital, processes, and technology. Welcome, Jakub, and thank you for allowing us to interact and learn from you today. To introduce ourselves, I am Gaurav Rathish, and I'm also joined by one of my batchmates here at CEPT, Shivam Rao. Both of us are pursuing a master's in technology, construction engineering, and management from CEPT University in Ahmedabad, India. We're very excited to hear from you. Over to you, Jakub.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this warm introduction and for having me here today. So thank you, Gaurav and Shivam, for hosting the session. It's really my pleasure to share with you some of my experiences I had over the past years in the industry, and hopefully we can all inspire the next generation of leaders in this space. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually share a few slides with you to show some of the latest thinking that we have around the digital construction. So if you don't mind, I will grab the screen. So thank you for the opportunity again, and thanks for joining the session, everyone. Let me just start by introducing what is Bentley and why do we want you to join this exciting industry?
This is infrastructure. And this. But so is this. It's here. It's way out there. It's everywhere. And it's essential. Definitely essential. Infrastructure works hard, and so do the millions of people who make it work. Not sitting in an office all day plugging away at a spreadsheet until your eyes pop out of your head hard. No, these jobs are different. These jobs use your whole brain. Jobs that take you to the far reaches of the world. Jobs that change the world. But how do you get in on this? So glad you asked. We're Bentley Systems, the infrastructure engineering software company. Our software builds all that stuff. Were you expecting a protractor? Hang on to that. In just a few clicks, your journey begins. Join us and build yourself a new world.
All right, so here you could see a little bit about ourselves and about some of the things that we consider important. But here is one of the things that we definitely see happening around the world. So if you think about the future of urbanization, we definitely see that there is more and more people that are moving towards the cities and starting to live in the cities, and therefore the pressure on the cities is becoming very important. If you take cities like Singapore, where I'm streaming from today, you see that the Singapore has very limited space and can only go up or down or optimize the existing city assets. And by 2050, about the 70% of world population will live in the city. And when we think about the city, there are some key objectives that we want to support. First of all, we want to ensure that the design and construction workflows are improved, optimized, and these workflows are actually enabling better city assets, better buildings, better roads, better schools. We also want to ensure that we support the cities that are more resilient, safer, right? And here we enable a number of workflows like risk assessment, mitigation, and so forth. Another topic which we're very passionate about is sustainability. Here we, of course, want to lower down the carbon footprint, and everything here is focused, of course, on improving superior experiences of our cities. Now, there are a number of key technological trends that we believe everyone should consider, and you might have seen about the advent of Internet of Things or drones or something that we call the digital twins, right? This is all happening in the construction space as we speak as well. The other key technological trends which affect the construction industry include augmented reality, of course, the ubiquitous use of the mobile devices, and also everything that is happening in the cloud, such as cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and so forth. Now let's double click on the digital twin itself. So what is the digital twin? So the digital twin is really about taking the physical asset and bridging the gap between the physical and the virtual, building this virtual representation of the physical asset. And ideally, that representation spans across the full asset life cycle. So it's not just in planning, design, and construction, but also during the operational stages of the asset. Ideally, the twin is continuously updated, and it helps us visualize what's happening on the ground, visualize the progress of construction, but also visualize how the asset is performing in operations and generate those insights, right? So this digital twin is really the way to access the information to make better decisions. And in fact, during all the different stages in engineering, operations, and construction, we will be collecting a number of information assets, whether these are specifications, drawing documents, maybe information coming from cameras or other type of information which can be now aggregated and visualized in 3D, 4D, and also we can now enable a number of workflows such as analytical workflows, AI, and machine learnings. What we also see is that the cities are becoming more and more connected, right? So the citizens are connected between each other, the services are connected, but also the infrastructure assets are becoming more and more connected. So imagine a world where the new, perhaps an internet of digital twins is connecting the different infrastructure systems to make better decisions across the city for better experiences for the citizens. So in this world, we will see various systems that are connected, or perhaps energy, water, road networks, and help us generate the information and consume that information, for example, related to CO2 emissions or water consumption patterns. And you can think about this information across different layers, right? So you will have the natural environment at the very bottom, where we can collect the environmental data about what is the context for our cities and infrastructure. And as you go up, you will have the social infrastructure, the transportation data, and other type of data being gathered for enabling this economic infrastructure, which is really all about services for the citizens. And you might have heard about the metaverse as well. Yes, we are also really thinking about how can we support this new economy, this new space that is being born. So really, the question is it real? Is it happening? And I would say definitely it is happening, right? Here is the world's largest fusion reactor, ITER, if you haven't heard about this, which is really like a donut shape fusion reactor that uses magnetic fields to confine plasma to a shape, and uses different type of reactions to split the atom and release tremendous amount of energy. We have visited this space very recently, and we work with this, with the owner of this reactor to actually build the digital twin
You've
of
probably
the
seen
asset.
amazing digital twins, 3D animations, and video renderings. What if you could put on a virtual reality headset from anywhere in the world and experience your plant or projects like a video game? A fully immersive world you can work and explore in. You can even move forward and backward in time in the virtual reality environment. This is not science fiction. It's being done right now. This technology has moved out of the VR cave and is moving toward the mainstream.
All right, so that's enough of the video, but you can see that our industry is moving towards workflow. We could really use augmented reality, photogrammetry, and other type of technology that enable the exploration of construction site, better engineering and design. We in fact see that the cities are continuously changing, right? There is more and more new construction projects coming along. And in fact, it's all about being able to oversee construction as it's happening, real time, streaming the data, comparing between the as planned to as constructed, and ensuring that we are on time and to budget. It's also all about being able to collaborate better on project. In fact, here you can see another example of the augmented reality enabled use case where we can start to interact with things, visualize them, comment on them, and understand not only the construction, the design, but also understand each other better to make better decisions. And in another use case here, and this is what we've built together with Microsoft, where you're able now to inspect the infrastructure remotely, right? So this is now possible with digital twins using real-time, high-fidelity rendering, which allows multiple experts to inspect the asset at the same time from different locations, perhaps saving up to 40% of labor costs for each inspection. And a similar example we've done with Singapore, where Singapore Land Authority have been working with us to create the digital twin at a city level to scan the entire city with drones and build a photogrammetric representation of such city to enable a number of workflows. And here are a couple of them that are possible once you build and assemble the information. So here, for instance, you can see we're walking through the cities where these cities are becoming more responsive, right? The augmented reality here is applied so we can interact with things, visualize them, comment them, and understand how they work and make better predictions and design. So to summarize, what we see is that cities are an ever-evolving mechanisms with continuous data streams that require someone like yourselves to help us assemble those data streams, that require someone to interpret those data streams and someone to apply those data streams during the engineering workflows for better decisions. And in fact, our concepts are the whole vision around this continuous data stream is that we are able to aggregate data such as BIM data, civil data, IoT data, reality data, but also subsurface data from underground, geospatial data, and data from operations, whether these are construction operations or these are maintenance operations, to then very easily and in an open manner aggregate these data for better workflows. And in fact, we've built an open environment which everyone can now utilize for building even new workflows, new use cases, new technologies on top, right? So in fact, we invite all of the students that are attending this session to play around with it and perhaps build the new capabilities to improve the construction sector. So I will stop here and we'll open for questions. Hope it was interesting, and I try to share some of my thinking around where the industry is going. So I'm open for questions, for any questions you might have right now.
Thank you so much, Jakub. And this was very exciting from the very first second. I was hooked onto it. Like, I don't know what was more exciting, if it was just the music or the visuals, or the mere fact that all of us, we are a part of something very huge that could revolutionize a lot of things. And just to set a base to the set of questions we'd be asking, just this semester, we've got a studio called Integrated Project Practices. So in that, just last week, we were studying an article by Dr. Peter Smith from University of Technology in Australia. And it mentions how even countries like Singapore, you mentioned you're in Singapore right now, they've had funds allocated for something called they've developed, that a few programs they've sort of developed to ensure BIM or digital construction is implemented at all levels. So this sort of levels the playing ground for all consultancies or construction companies that are involved on the ground. So this was very exciting. I'm going to open the floor for questions. The first one, I would ask Shivam to go ahead and ask.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. It was a really insightful presentation, and I have a couple of questions, and then you can answer. So, first one is like, how important do you think is the introduction of digital construction concepts or VDC in the undergraduate courses around the world? Because these concepts are being mostly focused upon during the postgraduate program or maybe the doctorate program. So, how important that part is? So that is my first question, if you could.
Well, first of all, I think we need to bring about the context in which we operate, right? Our industry is lagging in terms of the adoption of construction, digital construction workflows. If we compare the productivity that we have in the industry to some other industries like manufacturing or banking, and the level of digitization is very low. And to do that, we need to do it upstream. In fact, I would think that we don't have to limit ourselves to the undergraduate studies either, right? Bentley is working very hard even before people get to university, working with some schools, high schools as well, to ensure that these skills and this thinking is really embedded, and people are excited about joining our industry. I also think that there is a generational shift, so to speak, right? We have not only the Gen Y taking the leadership roles in construction and demanding the new skills, the new capabilities, the new workflows to be adopted, but we also have a Gen Z which is entering the workflows, the construction in full force, and therefore are also demanding that the new way of working is more exciting and more digital, right? So I think that it's really important to go upstream, not only to the undergrad studies, but even high school, and inspire the generation to come into this space, but also give them the tools and the means to operate in the new reality, which is going to happen very soon. The other important thing is another context here is that I believe we really need to start more aggressively to close the diversity gap as well. And I think more women and more diverse workforce will be empowered, and we're more likely to take office in this space if we're able to do it digitally. Right, so think about a more office space work, more engineering, more project management type of work, where perhaps more diverse generation can come and take more places in this space. But ultimately, I believe that the students that come into the workforce from day one, if they are empowered through digital means, they can really start to outperform very soon the existing workflows and be more competitive, right? So you can think about the older workforce that perhaps didn't take seriously enough the digitization will now be reliant upon the new workforce, which can bring more value. And I think there's going to be really an opportunity here to bridge the generational gap as well, because the older generation will rely on the younger generation to bring the digital skills as well. Another thing that I think about quite often is that universities should partner much closer with the vendors like Bentley and with the industry, so that the skills that are really required in that industry are being educated on in the undergraduate studies as well, as early as possible, right? So I think there needs to be some work done on that connection, because I really think there is huge demand for BIM workflows, for digital workflows. And if you're equipped with those workflows, you really have a head start. And also your career paths will be much more open, right? Because I think as you enter the workflows equipped with different thinking, more digitally driven thinking, your career options are much wider, right? So it's not just about pure engineering work or architecture work. You can start to think about work in digital transformation. You can even start to work in the within the vendor, right? Within the software provider or platform provider like ourselves, or perhaps in a consulting space to help the traditional construction firms or engineering firms transform digitally.
Understood, sir.
Great. So if I could just go ahead with the second question. This was in line with what I started with. How can a country like India sort of administratively ensure BIM or virtual digital construction gets implemented on ground? Because we've seen there's a lot of hesitancy when it comes to the implementation of what we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a great question, but I think it doesn't apply to India only specifically. I think this problem is quite global, right? Actually, we should think about frameworks to empower various governments around the world to transform digitally, to procure digitally, and to procure not only the physical asset, which means not only the physical railway, the physical building, the physical road, but also to procure the digital building, the digital railway, and the digital road, right? So I think that's the key concept there. But first of all, I think to ensure that we shouldn't necessarily focus purely on digital, because digital is just a mean to an end. But what is that end? It's a bigger and better question, right? So I think we should start to focus on the outcomes that these technologies can enable, right? And these outcomes can be multiform. This could span from pure productivity outcomes, design faster, better, less errors, less rework, but also sustainability outcomes, and ensure that we think about sustainability during the design already, and not as an afterthought, once the building is being built or the road is being laid down. Other outcomes could include faster handover, better handover into the operations, to ensure that as you finalize your physical assets, you can then start to operate that physical asset better, faster. And therefore, we should focus really on full asset outcomes, asset lifecycle outcomes, right? It's not just about construction or design, it's really about operations, because as we hand over the building or the infrastructure, it will serve generations ahead, right? So how can we ensure that these outcomes around operational outcomes, better throughput in terms of a road or a rail that's connecting more cities, right? Faster, you can have more trains on the same road and so forth are being enabled, right? So I think that first of all, what I would say, let's focus on these wider outcomes. And then I would suggest that these governments and administrations work with the industry closer, work with software vendors as well, which develop new thinking, a new way of workings to develop standards, right? And I think there is already a number of standards that are put in place, like ISO 19650, and I think these are the standards that we should already embed in our workflows, but develop new standards, right, around digital twins, perhaps, and evolve existing standards as well. Once those standards are in place, I think administrations have a big role to play in ensuring that they can mandate those standards across the industry on all the publicly procured projects, right, to start with, and generally also mandate the handover of a digital asset to the owner and operators so that the digital twin thinking is really adopted. Because once we understand that the construction firms and engineering firms are ultimately required to mandate a digital twin, an as-built, as constructed, or as handed over twin to the owner, I think the whole mindset changes around how do we get organized within the industry and within the organization to deliver such assets, right? And I think also, of course, they can exercise the pressure on the owners and operators to adopt the digital twin thinking and pull the industry together, but also reward, productivity gains, right? If those productivity gains are demonstrated, you could introduce a certain point system in the public tenders where perhaps an experiences in such deployments, digital deployments, is being rewarded in those tenders. And also allocate funding, generally funding for innovative projects. So in Singapore, as you mentioned before, there are funds for where all your technology investments can be actually then refunded through a number of schemes. So if you do have a demonstrated workflow improvements, these can be then refunded as well. So you get double benefit, right? Or you get basically a better workflow for free in a nutshell, because the government will refund those. So it needs to be a long-term thinking about increasing, the competitivity of your industry and your value chain. And I think this will have really a ripple effect on the supply chain, who will then mobilize perhaps around major projects and will upskill the capability to win more projects.
Perfect. I get that now. Hopefully, with the discussion that's happening on the field, things move in a more optimistic direction. Over to you, Shivam. You had a couple more questions.
Yeah. So, like linking to my first question, we discussed how this introduction of digital construction concepts in the upstream will be opening new doors, and more career opportunities will be then built. So what could be some of the core and non-core job profiles that would be the kind of which will be helpful with for the development of individual, as well as for the enhancing the digital construction with the help of out of this trainings and skills? What would be some of the core and non-core job profiles that can be kind of coming across?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. What we must realize is that at the end of the day, the industry is going to move from delivering purely the the physical asset, as I mentioned before, but it will also deliver the second asset, the digital assets, right? So But what does it mean? Well, it means that there's going to be much more focus on information, documents, databases, graphical description of that assets, and therefore we need to ensure that there are professions built around the ability to deliver the second asset, the digital asset. We need professionals like yourselves, young and energetic, with new skills and capabilities to do so. And I think as any one of you that is approaching and finishing your university, you should first of all position yourself along the value chain. What I mean by that, right? Because ultimately the construction space is quite vast. But think about what motivates you the most. Is it more into the infrastructure planning? Do you think you're going to be at the very upfront planning at the city level, at the country level, or for the owner, what type of infrastructure, new assets being built? Or are you more interested into design and engineering, perhaps, detailed design around structural design, geotechnical design, and so forth? Or maybe you're more interested in construction and construction management, right? Or maybe operations of the assets, right? So I think, first of all, I would suggest that anyone should sort of position themselves to do that. And all in all, I believe that there is going to be a need for industry experience. So I wouldn't suggest necessarily to go directly into pure digital experience, but you could still do your industry experience and once you get that, maybe 1-2 years, go into more digital experiences, maybe help system integrators, software vendors, or startups, or maybe consulting firms get better through digitization, or help provide better services to the standard or traditional businesses as well, right? So you could be perhaps a consultant in this space. You could be a startup co-founder. You could be a salesperson, then selling and helping introduce a particular digital capability into the traditional firms. You could be a relationship manager, right? Managing this interface between the pure digital or digital first film and the traditional firm. Or you could be maybe something we call success manager as well. It's really like an interface helping the traditional firms transform. So you could be really either inside the traditional incumbent firm, or you could be external and try to digitize more aggressively. I think there is generally more to EEC than the traditional engineering roles, right? And you can apply your engineering background to perhaps maybe fly a drone, right? And then build a reality model for everyone to use. You could maybe be in charge of digital transformation at a particular company, or again, managing the relationship, or you could be working at the intersections. But in summary, I think that there are a number of roles that are popping up from this new need for the digital asset, for a BIM asset or a digital twin asset, right? Because you will need to be able to plan for the digital asset, so understand what information is needed. Maybe you will work with an owner or a builder to help that builder think about what questions do they need to get answered by these information assets, right? But maybe you will be working more towards the production of a digital asset itself. So think about BIM modeling, right? Or maybe data capturing from drones, or maybe it's structural engineering modeling, right? It could be any type of models, generations, and altering that require certain skills and capability. And finally, it could be maybe about coordination across different disciplines where this digital asset needs to come together. So perhaps roles around information management, right, and sharing and collaboration. But finally, you could also think about a role of an innovator, really bringing together the new workflows and capabilities to life, understanding the problems that particular firm has, and bring the solution to life and help whoever you're working with. I think there is a number of angles we can take here.
Yes, yes. Like as you said, like it opens a lot of opportunities, and within there are a lot of fragments we can explore. So yeah. So like one question I would like to ask, one more question. So coming to the part of integration and collaboration among the stakeholders and all the site people, and as well as the planning people. So like what are the like common protocols for the data sharing, and do this standard of the information required that is somewhat kind of an barrier or an obstacle while this process is being carried out?
Yeah, so look, I think this is an never-ending problem, right? Because you will have more and more vendors, more digital solutions, which might require native formats that are optimized for a particular use, right? In our space, perhaps this is a DGN format, but maybe a 4D format, or maybe a cost format, right? Maybe there are other formats that are open in terms of like industry recognized standard, like IFC perhaps, or CTGML or BFC, generally open source formats. And Bentley has its own open source format, which is iModel and the iTwin .js, right? Which sit on the GitHub, but can be then utilized for everyone and expanded on and built upon. So I think the question is, how do we make the connection between the disciplines? Is it a connection which is ad hoc, for instance, application to application, or can we perhaps somehow synchronize your data model with some sort of cloud hosted environment, which is an open database to which all apps connects and can synchronize and stream data in and out, right? And I think we actually believe in the latter. We believe that there is a continuously synchronized and open platform which is stored in the cloud with schemas from different applications aligned where everyone can access as needed, right? So I think I would actually move beyond a specific format and capability, because I foresee more, not less, formats being generated as new use cases and capabilities are coming across to the industry. So our approach is really to bring everything together, provide a platform that's open to everyone to host even, right? Because if you would like to use our platform to build your own solution and be the developer, join our partner network and build it on your own and provide the solution to a problem, I think you're also open to do so. So our approach is really an open approach, and I think the protocols ultimately ideally follow some sort of industry standards, but our goal is to be able to absorb if not all of them, most of them, and then to be able to visualize it in an open fashion.
Understood. Gaurav, please continue.
Yeah, so sort of trying to quantify whatever we have been discussing so far. How do you see that, as we move along the project life cycle, to what extent does digital construction help reduce the cost and time?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, because we're going into exactly why we need the digitization. And I think digitization is not just about cost and time reduction. And I will answer your question, I promise, but I think we need to put it into context, because it's not just about cost and time reduction. Sometimes it's really about cost and time certainty, right? And but not even that. I think it's all about enabling better outcomes, better buildings, better infrastructure, because if we're able to simulate not 2-3 times as we could do it before, but 100 times, provide not 2-3 options or versions of a building or an infrastructure, but 100, 200 versions, and then select out of more options a better design, I think we will be all better off, right? But to answer your question, it, of course, digitization, one of the primary objective is to provide better, improved productivity and improved, let's say, certainty of a particular deliverable, right? That the deliverable, reducing errors on site. And I think, across the different stages of the life cycle, whether this is in pre-construction, so think about planning or optimizing spaces or designing a particular assets, maybe looking at design decisions about materials, right? So imagine being able to plug in your digital model into a database of all the different materials available on the market and make a better decisions, perhaps predicting the cost of that particular component in the market in 1, 2, or 3 years when you're actually going to be building that particular asset, right? If you can do it better, more effectively, you can start to optimize the costs of your asset much more accurately, right? But of course, all the design workflows which are more efficient with reducing errors, we see often 20-30% cost reduction because you're just much more productive and you have less rework on the design workflows. The construction workflows, like an open a Pandora box here again, because what type of workflows do we really mean, right? Is it managing, ultimately it's about managing resources like materials, people, time, and money. And if you can do it better, if you can monitor your construction site or your digital replica of the construction site to optimize, to have better material management, better people management, time and money, I think there is a lot of efficiency to be gained. And don't get me started on the post-construction, right? Because once we hand it over to the owner and all the workflows about testing and commissioning, and finally operations, I think the opportunities are endless for not just cost optimization, but ultimately better and more certain outcomes that we are intended to achieve. Like think about an iPhone when you're buying at a shop, or a Samsung, right? Ultimately, you're not really concerned as an end user about how it's being designed and built, right? What you want is better network connectivity. You want your access to your apps. You want to be able to rely on your phone. You don't want the screen to break too often, right? I think those type of outcomes we should think about when we build our assets as well, right? Does it answer your question?
Perfect. Yeah, the iPhone example helped in the end.
No worries at all.
Thank you. And Shivam, if you have any more questions to.
Yeah, like lastly, one thing I wanted to just ask. So like any additional tips or tricks, like student, we or students of our age that are like beginning our careers towards this industry, so we can upskill ourselves. Any recommendations for lecture series or podcasts or any websites that we can refer or something of that sort?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, I think you should start with bentley.com, but also Bentley, the education portion, right? I think it's education.bentley.com, where we have a bunch of materials and we have the entire team focusing on students like yourselves to help you get ready for the industry. I think try to subscribe to all the relevant YouTube channels from Bentley as well, where you can learn about new things that are coming out. But I would suggest pick a stage of construction and a particular workflow, right? Whether this is, as I mentioned, whether this is plan, design, construct, or operate. pick one that you like the most, and then understand which workflows are underpinning this particular stage of the life cycle, and which workflows excites you the most, and then do your own research, right? Pick a software that can help with those workflows. So for example, if you think about construction management, maybe it's Synchro. If you think about designing road, maybe it's Open Roads. If you think about planning and bringing all these workflows around building like a replica of an existing site, maybe it's something around context capture. So pick a workflow, pick a technology that you think will support that workflow, and just be good at it, right? Just do the training. You can go to also learn.bentley.com as well. Pick a training. Just get on with it. You know, be good. And if you like it, you know, explore further, go deeper, right? And you can even pick another workflow and go deeper and learn, right? And if you're into coding, perhaps many universities right now also offer some coding as well. You can start to go to imodel.js and just Google iTwin, and maybe you want to start to build some workflows around the digital twin that haven't been possible before. Ultimately, I think everyone should find a mentor, someone who can help them navigate the complex world of professional world that everybody's facing now, and take charge of your career. Really, just you're coming out from the predetermined path, but now the possibilities are endless, right? You can try a lot of things. I would say hop around, learn what you love, because maybe you're not sure yet as you're coming out from university. So the next phase I would suggest is exploration.
Yes, Alec, I understand. It's all about discovering what we like, and then we can flourish into that field. Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, thank you so much, Jakub and Bentley, especially for giving us this opportunity to interact and have this conversation. Now, before I wrap this up, I just have a little thing to ask for you, because you ended on that note asking for us to look for mentors who can sort of, you know, help us orient into the field and sort of try to figure out what our niche is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
How open are you as, you know, to be a mentor if any of us comes up and asks you? Because it's one of these rare occasions that you've come up and had a discussion. It's rare to have someone who's at the forefront of this development and come down and have a discussion. So I'm going to utilize this moment and ask you if you're up in taking up a mentorship role, if someone like us comes to you.
Absolutely. I'm already helping a few, and you know, we can do this one-to-one, one-to-many as well. If you want to organize a session where I can answer a few questions with different students, just let me know. I think, you know, a lot of people are actually open to do it, right? Like you can simply go on LinkedIn and find a person that you find interesting and that has an interesting career that you want to get into, and I think nobody will say no to an initial chat. You know, some people might be busy, but I think don't discourage if people say no. I think it's all about trial and error, and just you know, maybe the first few will not answer, but I'm sure someone will answer. And I'm of course also open to, if you have any questions, just drop me a line and I'm happy to help.
Perfect. And the entire discussion has been in a very optimistic direction, not just for me. I'm pretty sure all the people who are going to be viewing this video, they'll realize the sort of potential that the AC industry holds, not just as a career line, but also for so many people who are associated with it, be it the end user, be it the facilities management team, be it the team who's working on developing the entire project, the designing aspect of it, the planning aspect of it, the vendors or the contractors involved in the execution of the entire project. Everyone is going to benefit, and this sort of helps us realize the dream of so many powerful imaginations of infrastructures that we've seen come up in movies, that we've seen people interact with them in a way that we always, because we've seen movies like Iron Man, where he's interacting with his own house. He has control over every aspect of his house. There's so many movies that sort of help us envision how the future could be, and we've seen in today's discussion how probably in a very wishful manner we've sort of already oriented ourselves as an industry to help achieve what someone has already imagined, and hope this growth is in a very optimistic direction and in a stable manner as well. Thank you so much, Jakub. Thank you so much for coming down and having this discussion.
The pleasure is on my side, and yeah, just looking forward to see your generation taking the lead in digital transformation. So let's do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jakub. And thank you, Bentley, for giving us this opportunity as well. Thank you.
Take care. Good luck.